Hey everyone, welcome back to Above Board with CandorPath. In today's episode, we welcome back Michael Scott. We also have Matthew Marcoux on the show, and we're talking about the impossible nature for one human to know all things finance. So we've learned a lot in our combined 50 years of industry experience, but most of all, we've learned to recognize what we're good at and what we aren't good at. Gents, what do you say? Jump right into it. Let's go.
I'm going to jump into it. I think Michael is not good at interior design because I've been looking at the gray wall behind his desk now for going on 2 years. And I just want to personally say, Michael, it is time to throw some art on that wall. And we know that you're not going to be interior designer. So I really hope you're good at some of these other things that we're going to talk about today. What do you think?
Yeah, that one just caught me off guard. That's what, 16 months, 17, 18 months on a gray wall. I've been in this house.
You don't get paid the big
years.
bucks. You don't get paid the big bucks to put art on the wall. Okay.
No,
working at home is tough.
That was not his job description.
We did buy when you started with us, which congratulations on celebrating 1 year with CandorPath. When you started with us, I think, didn't we buy you a gift card for Home Goods or something so that you could put decor on the wall?
You did, and I bought 3 candles with it so far. I still have most of that gift card. I actually went to Home Goods and looked for some stuff, and just, the selection wasn't great. So here we are. We're still waiting.
Well, you can't smell on video, but hopefully it smells nice over there. So let's dive right into this topic. So I think that, we talk a lot about, how financial planning is a very vast topic. It can cover so many different areas of one's financial life. And I've always sort of joked with clients, especially new ones who are onboarding with us, that you're not a good financial planner if the only thing you do is portfolio management and investments, but you're also not a good financial planner well, I kind of butchered that. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Matt, save me.
I know where you're going with it. And it was sort of what we talked about in the pre-call. You can't be the jack of all trades. And Michael said, well, then are we the jack of all trades? Because we actually do everything. And my reaction to that was, we have individual jacks, right? So Michael is a jack and I'm a jack and John's a jack. This is going I think this is going worse than to go for John. But my point is, let's bring this back in, guys. Reel this back together. Is that individually, we have a very great depth of knowledge in our individual fields and that we bring all of this together. Now, back it up even further to this is that it started with a book. And if you head over to our website, CandorPath Financial, and you look at the About Us section, you'll notice it starts, I think that's the first sentence of our bio, is it started with a book. And it started with this idea that John actually came to the table with, is that maybe these silo financial planning practices, and a silo is defined as a group of financial advisors who just basically are under the same brand, but actually work individual. Is that the right way to go in building a financial planning practice? Or should you group together individuals who have different skill sets, bring them together and collectively work for the client, as opposed to everyone just doing their own thing? And that was really the genesis of CandorPath when we started it. And Michael being added a year ago was really one of the major cogs in that wheel to make this a smooth running enterprise, knowing that he has a very great depth of knowledge in one of the most important areas of what we do, which is the investment management side of it, and bringing that with the tax side of it, with the insurance and risk management and cash flow and budgeting side of it, and then bringing all of that together for our clients and everyone working as a collective unit as opposed to individuals. And I think that's kind of where you're going with that, John.
Wow. Thank you for saving us. So we got real silly on the pre-call, which lesson learned, never ask these guys to do a pre-call and plan for the discussion, because then we let the silliness kind of spill over to the first 2 minutes of the show. Michael, what do you have to say in regards to that? Like, what are your thoughts as, you're a year in with us? You're obviously, you're a decade into the industry now, but you're a year in with us. What are your thoughts on, because I think from a consumer point of view, outside looking into the industry, you think, oh, that's my financial advisor and that's my person. But it's really hard for that one person to be able to do if your life is affected by finances, decisions both big and small, every aspect of your life is. And so it's really hard for one person to be that know-it-all person to do all that. Whereas, we kind of come together and work as a team. Like, what do you have to say about that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the industry as a whole, like Matt, you pointed out that we all started as like a siloed siloed advisor. So when you come out of college or when you transition into this industry, your number one thing you try to start doing is getting clients, and you work with your clients and you go to become their number one answer to all their problems, because the more important you are to them, the less likely they are to leave you, kind of thing. And that kind of breeds closing yourself off, how you're compensated, how your clients work with you, that all gets put into a certain silo. And seeing this, for the past 10 years, seeing different variations of, what you kind of hit on, like an ensemble practice or a siloed practice or some sort of a hybrid practice. One of the interesting things about it is that when you look at our industry and you look at the, 3 or 4 biggest designations in our industry, the CFP, the CFA, the CPA, or the EA, which focuses more on the tax side, those are 3 massive tests that span, if you were to go get them all, close to a decade just to get all that itself for one person, and then to master all that material and be able to pull it out at a moment's notice and apply it in a perfect format all the time. It's a lot to ask for a single person. Even more so, it's a lot to do that repeatedly. So maybe you master all that information, but you know everything about one client. And if you only have one client, that's great. But when you scale that, how do you keep going?
And then you throw on top of it running an actual business. We have employees, we have a building that we run our practice out of, and we have all of these things. We make payroll. So you throw on top of all of that, then the day-to-day of just business creation and thinking like a business owner. And it makes it really difficult to be able to pull out of your hat a question regarding taxes, and then a question regarding where we're at from a market, and then a question about whether you're on the right Medicare plan. It's nearly impossible to do that for a single person. And that's something we identified, I think, really early on, was one person can't do this. You need a team. And then in order for the team to work, there has to be a collective sharing of the bottom line. And not to get our financials into this, but that is a really important component of it. Is why would an individual advisor help another advisor if at the end of the day they're not sharing in the creation of revenue for the firm, right? So that was a big hurdle that we needed to overcome at the very beginning of Candor Path, was deciding how is everyone compensated to make sure that everyone throws all hands on deck when we have a client retire. We just had a client recently retire early, and John was as part of that meeting in terms of making sure this client he retired at 60. I think as you listen to this call, that if you retire prior to 60, there's a health insurance issue, right? You can't get on Medicare until 65. So we had John on that side. We had myself on the retirement planning side. Can he actually do this? And then we had Michael on the investment side. Is okay, if he's going to do this, how do we structure the investments so that they provide support? It took all 3 of us. And then you throw in the rest of our team with Raina and Mackenzie and Megan, making sure that the behind the scenes work gets done and that operational efficiency happens. And this was an all hands on deck for a single client. And, again, the client sees maybe my face or sees Michael's face delivering the information, but it's coming from all of us. And we talk about our clients all the time, and it's a very open atmosphere of us being able to problem solve at the end of the day.
Yeah, a couple things I wanted to just mention. So first, back to Michael's point, if one person was a CPA, a CFA, a CFP, and had all these credentials, that person would be doing continued education all year round. Like, they would have no time to actually be a practitioner and work with and help people.
It's a good point,
for which
John.
The knowledge that they spent learning, because it's impossible to keep up with all that information. The other thing I'd like to mention, I'd like to rephrase a little bit of what you said, because you explained it in there, but I think people listening, you guys said the word silo a lot. And I think a lot of people can understand, a solo practitioner, someone that just, it's them and maybe a support staff, and they're the advisor and there's no one else at the company. And then people could probably easily wrap their heads around like the ensemble approach, where you have this team-based approach. But a silo, specifically, Matt, you kind of gave the definition of it. Do you mind just saying that again?
Yeah, a silo is really a group of solos. So, John just defined solo as an individual practitioner. It's your person. a group of your persons who just happen to have the same brand and maybe
Yeah.
operate at the same building or have the same business card is a group of solos, and we call that a silo. And these definitions aren't ours. And by the way, there's no right or wrong here, right?
Right.
There's a lot of ways to do this. We just did research when we were creating Candor Path on what is the best way that works for us. So
Right.
I'm not knocking anyone else's operation, but we just looked and saw, okay, so where's the most ideal way to create this? And the ensemble for us was where we were really attracted to. But to answer your question, John, yeah, a silo is a group of solos. Everyone's just kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah, so it's let's say a group of service professionals all underneath one umbrella, under the same brand of the same company, but they might all be doing the same thing. There's a lot of duplication in their work. And one of the things that is very fun might be an interesting word, but like about how we apply financial planning. So to your point, we have a team of 6, and whether it's support staff, advising staff, whatever, I mean, we really apply everyone's time, effort, and talent for the culmination of delivering a really positive experience for that one client. So one client might, let's say, have Michael as their point person or their lead advisor, but that one client throughout the course of the year is going to have interaction and get to know, let's say, myself or Matt, depending on what capacity we need to be brought in for. And we do happen to have specific skills and specific knowledge base that we said, hey, listen, you go deep on this thing, I'll go deep on that thing, and what have you. But what I think is very been a fun exercise the last couple of years is we do this thing called an energy audit. And the point of our energy audit is to identify what we're calling our zone of genius. Props to David DeSell, who I know listens to the show and has been on the show. He's the reason that we do this. And each year, maybe about once a year, we sit down and we look at what are all the things, we rank them in quadrants, but what are the things that we love what we love what we do and we're good at doing, and then all the way down to the quadrant of the things that we don't necessarily like doing those things, and we're bad at those things. And doing that, I think for me, clients have often said to me, wow, I could see your passion. Like I could see like the love that you have for this industry, and I can feel the passion, like your enthusiasm for it. I can feel it. And the reason I think that comes through is because I know every day I get to do my best effort at applying myself in those ones, the things that I love doing and the things that I'm great at doing. And the 3 of us actually individually did this recently as an exercise and then kind of came together as a team. Do you guys want to touch on that at all? Because I just think that's a very fun exercise that makes certain that we're not only applying each other's skill set and we're working together as a team, but we're also focusing on the things that we like doing within our firm.
Michael just did his, and I thought what was really fascinating as I read through it was the things that, in that lower right quadrant, if you're thinking of a box, is the things I don't like doing and I'm not good at. 2 of the things that he put, I think there was 3 things in there. 2 of the things were the areas of expertise that John and I have. And I don't know if that was intentional, and maybe there was obviously some subconscious, like, well, I know these guys do this, so I really don't like doing this. And they were taxes and risk management planning, which is really one of the specialties John has. And so I don't know if it was intentional or if it was just convenient that we happen to have those strengths, but I thought that was really interesting when I read yours, Michael.
Yeah, there's nothing that makes me cringe more than doing a financial planning meeting with clients, especially the first time, and then talking about the insurance risk piece. Because I'm here and I want to talk to you about your plan. I love talking to you about your investments. The last thing I want to do is sell you insurance, but we have to talk about it, right? And going in depth into that, I love being able to throw the ball over to John and be like, this is all you, man. You get the opportunity to review this more in depth. So it kind of worked out perfectly, which was one of the cool things about filling it out as a practitioner and as an employee, right? Because on one hand, it's cool as a practitioner to see that the things that I love doing, I'm actively doing, and the things that I don't think that I'm good at and I do not like to do, I'm not doing. So that was kind of refreshing from the beginning to see that that's put there. But then as an employee who's worked, for 10 years, being able to sit down and look at your job duties, place them in a quadrant from, you're not grading them from 1 to 10, but you're identifying the things you like to do and the things you don't like to do, and given the opportunity to say, hey, can we move this around that better affects the company and better affects me as an employee. That's kind of a very cool opportunity that I don't think you get in a lot of different places, to really sit back and give feedback on what your job duties are.
And we want to see everyone in our team work in their zone of genius. I mean, taking off the financial advisor hat and putting on the business owner hat, I want to see all 6 of us doing the things that bring us the most energy, because I know we're going to get not only the highest level of productivity, but we're going to have happy people surrounding us, and not people who are like, I hate doing this every day. If that's the case, there's 2 solutions. One is there might not be room on the bus, or 2, we got to rearrange the tasks and make sure that you're doing the things that are in your zone of genius. And I think for us, that feedback, as from a business owner standpoint, is immensely helpful, because it really does help shape where are our needs and what is missing that we need to be able to add to it. So this exercise, and I would encourage everyone to do it, not just from a professional standpoint, even from a personal standpoint, is Google Zone of Genius and take a look at the 4 different quadrants and look in your life what brings you the most energy and what sucks the most energy out. And then there's 2 other quadrants in there that are kind of in between, things that you're good at and you don't like, and things that you are not good at but you do like. And then figure out where are areas of deficiencies and where are areas that you really strive in. I find that powerful information to be self-reflective.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's clarify what the 4 quadrants are, which I think you did. So it's the things that you love and you're great at. It's the things that you like and you're good at. It's the things that you don't like, but you happen to be good at it. And then it's the things you don't like and you're bad at. And actually what's interesting is one of the first times we did this, maybe an unconventional way to go about or think about hiring, but it was actually how we've built a couple of different job descriptions, is Matt and I looking at this and going like, what's in our quadrant 4, and how can we deploy help to help us with that. I really feel like it's an important exercise of awareness. When we first did this, Matt and I think our zones were fairly similar, but I've noticed not a divide maybe, but I noticed over time we've kind of leaned into it even more, and we've very much niched out for ourselves within the company. Like, these are the things that we're good at, and these are the things that we love doing. And I think for me, it's really great because I can look back at that and go like, yes, this is what I want to be doing. This is what I want to do throughout the course of my day. And again, the passion shines through. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, and I would say the acceptance of the ensemble practice, whereas before it was an idea on a piece of paper, and we were all, let's be honest, in year 1 of Candor Path, John and I were doing the same exact things. We were meeting with clients. We were doing the same exact things we had done for the previous combined 35 years. Now we have so much trust in the team and so much trust in each other that John can go off and do the things that are in his zone of genius and not worry about the things that are in that bottom right quadrant of things that he does not like and he's not good at. And now we've kind of identified that there are complementary tasks and things that he and I are doing that are complementing each other, but they're on very different areas of the financial planning spectrum. And I think that took time and trust for that ultimately to happen. And Michael was a big help there. And again, so was the rest of the team. I mean, I can't stress enough how Mackenzie has stepped into her role, and how Raina has stepped into a role, and how, back in the day before it was just John and myself, and then the number 3 hire was Megan, and helping us from an operational standpoint take care of the things so that we didn't have to constantly think like a business owner. We had someone who handled all of the operations of the company. It truly is a team effort. But the awareness point that you made, John, helped us figure out where was the next place we needed to expand our business to, because there's areas that we knew we're not good at and we do not like doing. There are people out there that like to do those things and that are very good at them, and we need to find that individual.
For what it's worth, I don't, 20 minutes into the show, and I realized that this maybe sounds like a big commercial for us, and that's not what this is supposed to be. I think that thinking about any business owner or entrepreneurial person could apply the energy audit or just, I'm of the opinion that in the service-based field, whether it's financial planning or you're an accountant or whatever industry you're in, applying this way of thinking about business is, for me, I think this is how going forward businesses will need to operate, working in a very collaborative team-based approach as opposed to the solo or silo. So we're talking about just our industry, but I feel like this applies to many, many industries.
I'll let Michael jump here in a second because we haven't heard from him in a bit and we've been dominating this. But the last point I want to make is I just listened to our last podcast. And I don't know what number this is going to drop at, but with Lynn Tickner. And I took so much away from that podcast. It was fantastic. If you haven't listened to it, go back and give it a listen. John interviewed Lynn Tickner, who is the owner of Ink and Key, which is a marketing and branding company. But this is not about marketing and branding. There was one real point that hit home to me as I was listening to it, was that we are not the heroes of our own story, right? And so going back to the point that John just made, that this is not a big commercial for CandorPath, we were not the heroes here. We want to elevate the client, and everything we're doing is for the client. We want the client to be the hero, and we want to be able to support that client to make sure that all those different areas that are part of their financial life are firing on all cylinders. And that was one thing, as you were talking, John, I was remembering, this is not about us, not about a CFA, not about an EA, not about a CFP. It's about what that brings to the client and how we can elevate the client and make the client the hero of the story, not us.
Boy, I think you might have just come up with a new title for the podcast. I was thinking something different, but that was really good. We're not the hero
of our own story. I like it.
Can I ask Michael? Can I ask you a question? Great point, Matt. Can I ask you a question, Michael? And it ties in a little bit with what he said. Would you mind explaining? You've done this before, but I think it's worth explaining again. The difference between at least like the credentials that you have as an advisor, and then the credentials that, let's say, Matt has or I have, and the importance of like a CFA and a CFP and that type of thing. Do you mind just explaining for the audience what those are?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to start here because the best way I have to describe it is starting with the CFP. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this. But a CFP covers, it's 5 or 6 different areas that all together all encompass financial planning. There's investments, there's retirement planning, there's tax planning, cash flow and budgeting. Sometimes there's college planning, and there's different segments into it. But it's kind of the overarching, how do we plan out someone's financial life? Would you guys agree with that from a 30,000 foot level?
Yes.
Now, Matt, you have an EA designation, and I have a CFA, and my designation is the Chartered Financial Analyst. Essentially, what that does is it goes a deep, deep dive into the investment piece that the CFP covers. So a CFP knows investments. And John, we talked about this yesterday. A CFP as a solo advisor is well equipped to give you investment advice for your financial plan. You may not be disadvantaged by only having a CFP, but a CFA gives you a very in-depth approach to it and can give very specific, tailored advice to different things, can get very granular, can go off into different areas. And really the CFA exam covers, real estate, equity, fixed income, alternatives, derivatives, accounting, economics, quantitative analysis, and how that all puts together and essentially valuing investments. And that's really where it goes into. And then at the end of the CFA, you go through wealth management and portfolio management. And that's where the two dovetail together, because understanding going super deep into investments is great, but if you can't connect that to someone's financial plan or how it fits into their wealth management perspective, it's irrelevant, right? It's kind of like having a great investment advisor and all they do is rack up taxes inside of your individual account or your non-qualified account. Your investment return might be great, but you're paying it all back in taxes. So my designation is really going deep into the investment piece. The CFP touches all these different areas. And Matt, I'll let you jump in on the EA, but it's really the tax piece of the CPA exam. Would you agree?
Yeah, they're actually going to start arming us. If you've read in the news that all EA, no, I'm just kidding. They're not arming us.
You're gonna go work for the IRS? I heard that.
Yeah, no, we don't work for the IRS. Our job is to navigate that very thin line between tax avoidance and tax evasion, which if you heard me talk about it before, the difference is 10 to 15 years in prison. So we want to practice tax avoidance, and an EA is someone who's taken that deep dive, again, using that CFP analogy where you kind of get a little bit of each one or a lot of each one of those areas. Very much how the CFA goes deep into the investment piece, an EA would go, or CPA would go deep into the tax component to a client's financial life. So yeah, that's sort of the same side. It's the same analogy that you've used, but on the tax side versus on the investment side.
I keep thinking about what you said, where, you know, it's the bringing together this team of advisors to ultimately elevate the client's success story. Like we're not the heroes of the story, and we really do. We apply that when we're working with clients, and I think that's what makes a lot of the team thing work. Is that we can really focus on that, and at the end of the day, like I know that even if your schedule's really busy, this is to you, Matt or Michael, like even if the schedule's busy, but I need to bring you in for a client situation, there's no, you're excited to do it for the betterment of the client. And there's no, this is his client or her client or my client or their client type of thing. And I think that's what's really unique about this whole team-based ensemble approach. Matt, do you want to bring us home for the podcast?
And I don't want to get morbid here, but the last point that I want to make is succession planning, right? You have your one person you're working with. Well, you know, and we saw this in 2020, and I was asked point blank this question when COVID began, and we had a lot of uncertainty around what happens when you get COVID and do you survive? And I had a client, Ben and Desiree asked me, they said, Matt, what happens if something happens to you? And under the silo model or under the solo model, you know, you lose your practitioner and you just hope that someone else steps into that role. And I think one of the unique advantages of the ensemble practice is that literally any one of us can step into fill in that role, and there's no interruption to the ultimate client. So I didn't want to get morbid, but one point I did want to make is another advantage of this is that all of us, as we talk about the client is a client of the firm, not the client of myself or John or Michael. It's a client of the firm. And because of that, we all have a fiduciary duty to make sure that they are always being taken care of. And if one of us goes down, or if it's not even morbid, one of us goes on vacation, that there is always someone that knows exactly what's going on and can fill that role. And so I feel like that's something that gives our clients a huge peace of mind that they're no longer counting on one person. They're now counting on a team of 6 to make sure that their financial lives are being taken care of. So that was one point I wanted to make there at the end. Michael, I'll hand it over to you.
Boy, could you have made that more dichotomy opposite, by the way? Like either we take a knee or we're gone on vacation. Like
there's only two
in between in life.
And it could happen on vacation too. So there's which we hope none of this happens, by the way. This is very morbid. So
yeah.
Michael, please end with something more happier than what I just went.
No, I think you guys hit the nail on the head today. It's not necessarily it's an advertisement for CandorPath or who we are. You know, the model that we're trying to build here or are building is really centered around improving the lifestyle of the client or continuing their lifestyle past their retirement. And, you know, John, you had the initial title of this podcast, you know, why you need more than one advisor. We've talked about the merits of having more than one advisor, but having multiple advisors in the same office who know you and who know your plan and are able to step in should anything bad happen, but also
or go on vacation,
but just be able to carry different parts of your financial life. So your one advisor is not doing everything. It's extremely important. And I think it really allows each person to get a better experience because their advisor enjoys what they're doing. And that points back to the energy audit. You know, all of us enjoy what our role is. And I think that gets us the best productivity out of it, which at the end of the day leads the client to a better life.
I love how you said that. As my daughter would say, teamwork makes the dream work. And I feel like that is a good summary of what you just so eloquently said. Well, hey, everyone. Thanks as always for listening to us on Above Board with CanterPath. So this whole episode was not a commercial, but this part is. Go to CanterPath365.com and listen to us. That's our daily Alexa skill, finance tips, snippets of the podcast, just money motivation, money mindset, all sorts of good stuff on there. So CanterPath365.com, and we will see you next week on Above Board with CanterPath. See you, everybody.